everybody. Welcome to this month's Tax Talk. We'll give everybody a minute to filter on in. You can say hi to our guest speaker of the day, Gregg Bossen. Make sure I pronounce it correctly. He's going to introduce himself in just a couple of minutes. But while everybody filters in, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you're not new here, you know what I'm about to say. But there's no CPE for this session. We are only here for 30 minutes. So quick lunch and learn for everyone. We will post links to slide decks. We will post the recording. So if you're watching this after the fact, or if you didn't catch something, or you just want to go back to the slides to recover your notes, we will make sure that all of that gets posted and sent to all of you, but no CPE. So, Greg, I'm going to take a quick page from Gary's book while we're letting everybody get settled and do the question of the day, which I totally did not have prepared. But since we were talking about the weather throughout the country, do you have a favorite weather location that you like to visit where it's perfect for you all the time?
Wow. Is that what we're supposed to put in the chat?
No,
Or
I mean you can.
oh,
Everybody
me?
can share with you, but yeah, for
Oh.
you.
Oh, I mean, obviously it's Hawaii. Because
Oh my, yeah,
well, Hawaii is perfect year round. It's
it is.
always beautiful in Hawaii,
It
period.
is. I can't argue
So,
with that. I can't
yeah.
argue with that. I would have said
Is it
San Diego too. Sunny and 74 and never rain. So
I don't know. It's been hot in San Diego. Why is
that's
no
true.
one putting I want one person to put something in the chat about what we're talking about, just so we know that you even are listening to us because
Yes,
maybe you're not.
if you guys are here, go ahead and share your favorite weather location. Ooh, I got in northern Maine, Mary. She's my people. I'm southern Maine,
Sonia says anywhere but Arizona.
but nice. Naples, we have in Naples.
Mm.
Awesome. Well,
Alright.
we'll go ahead and get going. Just a couple more quick things, reminders for you. If you are not part of our Be Insightful program or you haven't subscribed to that yet, make sure that you head on over to the Insightful Accountant website and become an Insightful subscriber. If you want us to send you more information on it, thank you, Matt. Matt just put up a quick poll. You can go ahead and say, yes, please send us more information, and we'll get that over to you. There is so much exclusive content in here, some really deep dives, webinars, tech, human resources, marketing, all designed for your small accounting and tax practices. So if you're not a member yet, go ahead and click yes, and we'll get that information over to you. And then, last really quick thing before I turn it over to Greg and his expertise today. We are all going to be at Scaling New Heights next week. Hopefully, we're going to see many of your faces in person. But Monday night, we will be hosting the Top Pro Advisors reception. So if you don't have any information on this or you didn't have this party on your schedule and you're going to be at Scaling next week, go ahead and answer that poll as well so that we can make sure that you get an invitation to join us Monday night for the Top Pro Advisors reception. Awesome. So now that we got all the parties out of the way, I'm going to let Greg go ahead and introduce himself. Greg, do you want to tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do?
Yes, yes. So, I'm a CPA, alright, and you know what? I don't wanna share my screen yet. I'll share my screen in a second. Okay. I'm a CPA, just like a lumber review. I specialize in nonprofit organizations. So I've been a CPA for about 30 years, but I mainly do nonprofits. So we're doing about 15990s a year. We're doing audits of around 35, 40 audits a year. We do a lot of bookkeeping for nonprofits. So it's all things nonprofit. Now, the other thing that I do is I have a company called QuickBooks Made Easy for nonprofits. Now I'm sharing my screen, but I need to share this screen. Okay. And all we do, this is the website for QuickBooks Made Easy. And all we do is teach accountants and end users how to use QuickBooks. All of our trainings come with CPE, every single one of them. And so we have all kinds of training. We have nonprofit consulting. We have tech support agreements. So if you have any questions or need any help with nonprofit accounting, particularly in QuickBooks Online, we're your people to do that with. So enough about that. And I'm here to talk about the wonderful, the lovely 990s. So how do you want to do this, Christine? You want to just ask me questions and then I'll answer,
Yeah,
or all right.
I do. And I think this is so great because it's often a topic that we don't talk about this a lot on tax talks
Hmm.
anyways. We're usually focused on, the income tax preparation. And one of the things that you and I spoke about is I think a lot of practitioners kind of shy away from the 990 for various reasons. Either we're uncomfortable with it, we don't prepare a lot of them, maybe we don't feel like it's our bread and butter. But I shared with you that I still get asked to do them because of course as advisors that we get asked to sit on boards and things like that. So even if I'm not doing them a lot in my practice, all of a sudden my kid's little league team is like, "Can you file our 990 for us?" So can you share or maybe break down some of the stigma around 990? Like, I know we're going to go through the questions, some of the basics, who has to file, but what are some reasons why practitioners should still be paying attention to this form?
Sure. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, the 990, the whole point of the return is to prove to the government, to the country, that you're doing good work that's in line with your mission and that you're not doing anything nefarious. So it's an important document for that. Also, funders ask for that document before they
Mm,
give grants to nonprofit organizations. So it's important. We don't like doing it as accountants because, well, there's this idea that you can't charge very much for it,
mm,
because the nonprofits don't have very much money. And there's this idea that it's really hard. Now, the idea that you can't charge much for it isn't necessarily true, because to be honest with you, there is a huge demand for people to do 990s and not very many people to do them. So I've been
mhm.
able to create a huge business around it. I mean, I'm not arguing for competition, but I'm telling you, there's a big business. There's a lot of money to be made there. And is it a difficult return to do? Absolutely, it's a difficult return to do. It's one of the biggest returns there is. But the good news is nobody looks at them after the fact, and there's no tax due unless you have unrelated business income tax. So in terms of, I mean, I'm speaking to accountants here. In terms of your risk and that annoying client that's like, "I want to pay as little tax as possible," you're not going to get any of that with these clients, okay? So it's absolutely wonderful in that way. And, I charge around $1,200 to do a 990. So,
That's
um,
pretty decent income for a
abs
tax return.
as opposed to an individual return
Yeah, for
where
sure.
you're charging like $400 or $500,
Yeah.
and that person's freaking out because they don't want to owe any tax. Nonprofits aren't freaking out at all. They just need it done. All
Yes,
right. And then
absolutely.
once it's done, it's put into a shelf. No one ever looks at it again, particularly these days because they've hollowed out the Internal Revenue Service. But let's not talk about that. That's a whole different topic.
It's a
Anyway,
whole other webinar. It's a whole other webinar. I
all right,
think those are really, really great points. And I agree with you 100%. So tell us, like, who has to file a 990? Like, when are
sure.
they due? Like, what's the basics of this form?
Sure. So, this is from a webinar that I did for TechSoup. I do all their QuickBooks webinars. That's where nonprofits go to get QuickBooks. But anyway, any organization that is exempt from tax under Section 501A of the Internal Revenue Code, is supposed to do a 990, except for certain ones. Most everybody else does. So, a 501c charity, which is your typical charitable organization, a 501c4 social welfare organizations, 501c6 business leagues, 501c7 social recreational clubs. They all have to file some form of 990. Okay. Now, there are some nonprofits that don't have to file a 990 at all. And basically, those are going to be certain religious organizations. So churches, mosques, auxiliaries of churches, these people don't have to file. Everybody else needs to file if you're a nonprofit. I don't care if you make one penny, you have to file. I don't care if you have no activity at all, you still have to file once a year if you're a nonprofit. Now, just to kind of move on here, there are three possible forms they have to file. One is a 9N, one is a 990 easy, and one is a 990. So a 990 in, if your gross receipts are less than $50,000 and it's average gross receipts, so you take your gross receipts for 3 years. And if you're a brand new organization, if it's less than 3 years, you just take the average for the first year or the first 2 years. If it's less than $50,000, then all they have to do is file a 990 in. It's a postcard. It's not a postcard. It's an e-postcard. But you literally go onto the irs.gov website and you can just click 990 in the search window and you fill out a form with like 8 or 9 questions on it. It's incredibly easy. It doesn't require numbers much at all. And you just fill it out. You say you made less than 50,000, you send it in. It's no big deal. It's real easy. Now, if you have your gross receipts are over 50,000, but less than 200,000, then you have to do a 990 EZ. And once you're over 200,000 in gross receipts, or you have more than 500,000 in assets, then you have to do a full 990. Okay. Now, to be honest with you, the tax softwares that you'll need to use to fill out a 990 or a 990 EZ, it's the same basic amount of work to do a 990 EZ as it is to do a 990. So when your organization gets big enough to do a 990 EZ, just fill out a 990. I mean, literally, I use Lacert, and when we finish, we type in all the input screens, and when we push to form it, turn it into a form, we say turn it into a 990 or turn it into a 990 EZ. We've done the exact same amount of work, but it looks better to funders to have a full 990, plus we can bill more for it. I'm being honest here. By the way, I want you guys to ask me questions in the chat. I've got the chat open. I can see exactly what's going on. I'm here for you. So ask me questions. How was that? Was that
Yeah,
good?
that's
Okay.
great. So I have
Okay.
a follow-up question for you.
Mhm.
Is one of the reasons why you just put it in right into a 990, like if they are qualified to file a 990 EZ, but they grow, they could have to file a full 990 in the future anyways, right? Is that true?
It's true, but that's not why I do it. I do
Okay.
it because there's more information in a full 990 than a 990 easy, and it looks more legitimate to funders. And there's
Okay.
actually more opportunity for you to make a positive case for the organization if you're
Oh,
filling out a Form 990. There's more opportunity because that's really what you want to do. Let me tell you, IRS ain't looking at this stuff. They don't have the time. So
right.
I look at the 990 as basically a marketing device to try and get funds. So I'm going to go for a full 990 if I'm an organization because I'm going to be able to make a better case, a stronger case to a funder that I'm more legitimate if I'm doing a full 990. Plus, I have information that I can put on there that there's not really room to put on a 990 easy. Additionally, I mean, I can charge more for it. So,
Right. But I mean,
okay.
I like that. That's a really good point is that the organization has the opportunity to present more information about itself if it is filing that full 990. Now, when are these due? Because I feel like the due date on these gets sort of lost in the shuffle if we're
Yeah,
not somebody that's doing them on a regular basis.
they do. Let me answer a couple of questions first
Yeah.
from the chat here. So, this is it's RAN, maybe it's Randy. I have a client. They s- they sold a building that they occupied, and then they bought another building. Is there any special things that you need to do? Well, it's a sale. It's a sale, so you have to report that on the 990. The purchase is a new fixed asset. So it's just like any business return that you do. It's just that now the sale of the building may or may not be subject to unrelated business income tax.
Mm,
And you may be able to get an exception out of it, but I have to look at the rules for that's one thing that you may have to concern yourself with. I think technically you're supposed to pay tax on the gain from the sale of the business, but of the building, but I think that there's a way to get around that. Okay. So then we have another question from Susan. Hold on, I'm trying to get the all the way down at the bottom here. The organization been filing a 990 EZ for years. The gross receipts are under 25K. Oh, can they switch to 990N? Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Randy said, I read somewhere no capital gains would be involved. I have to look into that again because there's you don't have to pay tax on investment earnings, but capital gains from the sale of a building, you may have to pay tax on. I don't know. This is me
yeah,
saying
I
I don't
agree with
know.
you, Greg. I think that's
Okay.
research into what
Yeah.
qualifies as unrelated business income. We have another one from Rosemary in the Q&A. Can you see that,
Mhm.
or do you want me to go ahead and read that for
Read it
you?
to me. Read it to me.
When you file a 990N by e-postcard, do you get a form that you can present to a client that proves that you filed their 990N? Some of them demand proof, and I noticed that the e-postcard doesn't necessarily print out proof.
You can go to the IRS website, and actually I can show you this. This is actually really cool. If you go to the IRS website, um, and you just type here in the search, you type charities, it'll pull up. I'm just going to do this. You can see the whole thing. If you type charities here, it'll take you tax exempt search organization, and you can search an organization using the tool. And I typed in one right here for Oregon Ballet Theater, and you can get a copy of the returns, and the 990Ns are in there as well. So you could probably go here to get proof that something was filed. But I'm going to pull up this 990N. Did you know that you can go in there and you can get copies of 990s from
I
any
didn't
nonprofit
know that you could do
organization?
it on the IRS website.
Yeah.
Back in the
Mhm.
day, there was a different website that we always
GuideStar.
used.
We always
Yes.
use GuideStar, but you can still use GuideStar. The other thing that you can get if you go to the tax exempt search here is, let me see if they've got this here. Yeah, look, here's a 990N for this person. You can pull it up and you can get a copy. Look, there's a copy of the postcard. So, I mean, there's not really much information in here, but a screenshot should do the trick there. But in a lot of cases, you can get their tax exempt letter too. But anyway, your
Oh, that's really
question.
that's really important because I
Yeah,
feel like a lot of times some of these small organizations that have been around for a while don't have copies of those anymore.
right. And you were asking when they're due. That was
Yeah.
we were on the when they're due thing. So, I think I have a slide on this to kind of get through this. It's at the end. Sorry. Uh, what do they do? I think I put it at the end. These are different things that you would want to look for. Okay, so they are due 4 months and 15 days after year end. Another way to think about it is 1 month later than individual returns. Okay,
Mhm.
so December 31, individual returns April 15th. Although occasionally I run into somebody that doesn't know that your individual tax return is due on April 15th. I think that's so funny. But anyway, whatever. But anyway, so they're due May 15th. But you can get an extension by filling out a form called a 4868, and it's an automatic extension.
Are
And you
they
don't have
6
to
months just like everything
6
else?
months,
Okay.
6 months. So that means December 31 is due May 15th. I put all these up here to see when they're due, but you can extend it. Okay. So December 31 is actually due November 15th of the following year. Okay. And actually, if you're in a storm place like North Carolina extensions, like you can even, I don't even think the 23 returns are late yet for people in North
Oh,
Carolina.
right, for disaster areas. Yes.
Yeah. So you want to check to see. But
I
anyway,
do
that's your answer.
I do have a question about like what do you recommend for remediation if you come, a client comes to you and says, I haven't filed in a number of years. Are there penalties associated with that? Like, how do you help somebody remedy a situation where they haven't filed in a long time?
Okay. Well, first of all, you throw up because it's a nightmare to deal with it. Okay. The penalty for not filing is $25 a day. Up to I think 12,500 is the max. If your gross receipts are up to 1.274, so that's most of them. And then it's $125 a day for the bigger organizations. All right. And so obviously that's not great. And if they haven't filed for more than 3 years, then they're really screwed. Okay. But oh, before I do this, these penalties, they're scary when your client gets the letter. It's so easy to get out of them. Okay. All you do is make a case. You identify the penalty. You ask for them to abate it. You tell them why you filed late. I thought the accountant filed. The accountant thought I filed. You just make up something. Explain the cause of the error, and then important, make sure that this won't happen again. Tell them,
Mm,
well, I have a contact with this person at the firm. They're going to make sure this will never happen again. And you also want to say paying this penalty will cause undue hardship, and then please and thank you, they will abate it. I promise you, they'll make it
okay,
go
great.
away. Okay. Now, if after 3 years you haven't filed, then you lose your tax exempt status. That's when you want to throw up. Okay.
Okay.
Because the way to get the tax exempt status back, and you would want to get it back retroactively from the date, like from 3 years ago. Because if you lose your tax exempt status, then technically all the people that donated over the last 3 years are no longer able to deduct those donations on their tax returns.
Right,
So you
right.
want to go back. Well, the way to go back, if you're, let me see what it is. If you're, let's see. Let me see. This is what I wanted to show you. So if you normally file, let me do a little zoom here. Oh well. Okay, if you normally file a 990N or a 990EZ, then there is a retroactive reinstatement process you go through. If you do a 990, there's a bigger retroactive reinstatement process that you go through. And if it's older than 15 months, if you're past 15 months after the revocation date, then you have to do a full reinstatement. So basically, this is a fancy way of saying you have to fill out the form 1023 over again. This is the
Ooh.
form that they filled out when they originally asked for tax exempt status. That's why I say throw up. I don't do a form 1023 at all. Okay. There are people that do, but it's a gigantic form. You have to put all the reasons, who you are, why you think you should be taxes, and you basically got to start over again. You have to pay a fee to get reinstated. So it's a nightmare. But
Is it
anyway,
possible that the IRS comes back in those situations and doesn't approve the second request of the form, or that doesn't usually happen?
that does not usually happen, although
Okay.
these days, who knows?
Who knows,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
what do you do? This comes up with us a lot, and then I have another question in the Q&A for you, but I've seen this a lot where someone comes to us, they're a brand new nonprofit, and a lot of times, like I said, it's the kid little league team or something like that. They've realized that they should have been applying for these not nonprofit statuses. They want help, and we've done the application and we haven't heard anything from the IRS, and it's been 18 months, 24 months. So now they're supposed to be filing returns to be compliant, but we've never received a definitive answer from the IRS. Is there something
Yeah.
that
You can still file the return and put applied for, or I think you can still file the return. I don't think there's a problem, and you should absolutely file the
still
return.
do that? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, Ranjita, it was Ranjita, and thank you. Any gain on sale of a property that is used directly in performing the exempt function,
Mm.
but that's a 501(7), 9, 17, or 20, not a 501(c)(3). So, let me see. Organizations used to purchase other property that's directly used and perform that is recognized only as simple. So she's saying that there's no gain if you sell a building and buy a building and it's for the exact same tax exempt purpose. But that suggestion that you gave us, Ranjita, that tax thing, that only applies to 501(c)(7)s, 9, 17s, and 20, which is very few people. The 501(c)(3)s don't apply there. So we're going to need to do some more research. What else? Anybody else
Um,
got a question? Or you got a
we do
question?
we do have a question in the Q&A. Greg is asking if you would be able to make this slide deck available. Is this on your website?
No, it's not. But what I can do is if you get Bill and I'll have him send the deck to y'all so that you can ferret it out to whoever wants it.
I'm also going to put your contact information in the chat for everyone.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now the other thing is that and when I'll take some more questions here, but I do want you to know that if you don't do a lot of nonprofits, do a lot of non-nudges, I don't know that it's worth it for you
Mm.
to try and get into all of the minutia involved with doing a 990. But I'm going to pull up a 990 real quick because I do want to show you. Do you understand what people are looking for? This is actually my client here. This is a 22 990 that we did ourselves. But they look to see, first of all, this is what funders look at when they look at the 990. I'm going to just use some highlights. They look at the number of volunteers. You see, we have 230 volunteers. That looks good to funders. It's a number that a lot of people ignore when they're doing their 990 because they just kind of blow it off because they just want to put the numbers down. So that's kind of not great. The other thing that they do, you obviously want to look for the 2 years to see whether they're making or losing money. So that's obviously
Hmm.
something that they look at. That's pretty basic. They want to, you can see right on the first page whether they have net assets. Nonprofits, they call them net assets instead of retained earnings. But basically, this organization has 10 million in assets, 3 million in bills. They have 6 million in net assets. So they're positive. They're not in the red overall as an organization. So that's another thing that they look at. There's a bunch of yes, no questions here that have to do with policies and procedures like, look, did the organization have a conflict of interest policy? You want to answer yes to most of these if it's true, because it's going to make you look better to funders. You want to have as much in the hopper as possible in terms of policies that kind of keep you in line. This is, they break up income here, and then this is the P&L. These are the expenses. The expenses they break up into program management and fundraising. This is something that other businesses don't have to do. But by doing that, and then the rows are going to be the actual expenses. So like production costs, 527,000. That's what it is, but it goes under the program bucket as opposed to maybe the cost of the audit, which would go under management in general, as opposed
Mm.
to the money that was spent. Like this is the salary for the fund development director. So she goes under fundraising expense, but she also is salaries. Okay. Actually, that's the portion of the executive director's time they spend on fundraising. But anyway, so funders definitely look at this. They take the total program column, 7.6 million, they divide it by the total expenses, and they want to see that at least 75% of the expenses are for program. That's going to look great to funders. Okay, so that's another thing they look at. This is the balance sheet. Let's see what else there's. They list out everybody who is on the board or a director with their salaries so that people know how much these people are making. How crazy is that? But yeah, it's public information. Can you imagine? Let's see. And then they have this really annoying schedule. Well, two annoying schedules. One of them is called a Schedule A. Where is it? Where's a Schedule A? Should be on here. Hold on. I'm probably making you dizzy. There's a Schedule A. Oh, okay. They're a school, so they don't have to fill out the schedule. But typically, there's a schedule here where they try and see whether most of your donations are coming from the public or not. Um,
Mm.
and so that's another thing that they look at. If you have a nonprofit where most of the see here, I feel like I've got to figure out um, where most of the money that they get in donations is coming from just one or two or three people, then they're not really getting money from the general public, and that looks bad as well.
Mm.
You're supposed to get at least a third of your donated money from what they call the general public, and the general public is everybody except the big donors. And then there's all these definitions of what big donors means. But let me see. Here's copies of return. I want to just show you one of these because this is another thing that's like really important.
And while you're showing this too, because this is a
Hmm.
lot of like what donors are looking for, which makes sense,
Hmm.
right? Donors want to know where their money is actually being utilized with these organizations. Is there anything that the IRS looks for as a red flag, like that
Well,
would
that's one of the
potentially?
things. Yes, that's one of the things that
Okay.
they're looking for. This test here, it's a public, it's Schedule A, public charity status, public support. And what they're doing here, and let me make this a little bit bigger so that you can see this. So what they do is they take all the donations up here, they subtract out the portion of total contributions. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Um, the portion of total contributions by each person other than another nonprofit or the government that exceeds 2% of their total public support. So basically, they're looking for people. If you're getting money from private foundations, or you're getting money
Mm.
from individuals, that has to be subtracted out. So then they take this total of 14, which is a total of donations over the last 5 years. It's a 5-year average. They subtract out the big time donors. These people don't have very much. So then they divide that 25 into the total and they get a percentage And so the rest of it is 90. So 92% of their money comes from public support. This needs to be at least the third or bigger. This is probably one of the biggest things that they look at when they're looking at the 990s, although they're not looking at the 990s. But anyway, if they were going to be looking at the
That would be a number to pay attention to.
yeah, that would be what they were looking at. So the only thing that I want to leave you with, because we're at time, um, is I do want you to know a couple of things. If you don't want to do the 990, if you go to TechSoup, you can have the client come here. We do 990s through TechSoup for $1,290. We do a 990 in and an annual state compliance filing for 295. We do the 990 easy for 990. So I would look at telling your clients to do that
Mhm.
rather than you taking it on. The only other thing I would say is if you like me and you like the way that I teach and you want to learn more about nonprofit stuff or QuickBooks for nonprofits in general, go to our website, QuickBooks Made Easy for Nonprofits. And I think also if you want to give them our website, I think our email address, greg@greggbossen.com, you
Yes,
can
we
look
just popped
there.
that into the chat for everyone. So if you have any follow-up questions for Greg or you want to get in touch with him, go ahead and grab his email address and we'll send the recording of this out to everyone as well so they'll have the website as well. Greg, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Sure.
This was so informative.
Y'all put one word in the chat about how you feel about the last 30 minutes. I'm just kind of curious. Put something in the chat. Happy, sad, bored. I'm not paying attention. I have to go to the bathroom. I'm nauseous. Get somebody on here. I want to just say,
Great. All
uh,
the feedback was great. I saw a couple comments that people were learning a lot. Greg Bossen is the boss. Thanks. Amazing. This
all
was
right, well,
really, really great, Greg. This is one of the best teachings I've ever seen on 990s. So much clarity. I appreciate it.
it's also probably one of the only ones you've ever seen, but I still
It
appreciate your
probably
kind
it
words.
probably is. I mean, other than back in we were talking about state societies, other than 20 years ago when I used to go sit in a classroom and watch something online for 3 hours. So this was awesome. Thank you so much. Reach out to Greg if you have any follow-up questions. Thanks for being here, Greg.
All right. See you later. Bye.
See you all next week.